If you've played D&D for any length of time, then you probably know that there are different languages, and sometimes different characters speak different languages. But even more importantly, some characters do not speak certain languages, i.e. Common. Since Common is really the most common language usually most often spoken in D&D sessions, what happens if you have an NPC who does not speak Common? Well, believe it or not, this can lead to some exciting gameplay, and I'm going to tell you exactly how I run these types of NPCs. You're not going to miss this. Let's dive in. Good morning and welcome back to GM Philosophy in the Morning. I'm the GM Philosopher. Here at GM Philosophy, our mission is to empower game masters to run better games. We want to make your games more fun for your players, but also more fun for you. So if you're a game master looking to improve your craft, or you're a seasoned GM just looking to see what's going on out there, you've come to the right place. Hit that thumbs up button and smash that subscribe button. I also want to give you something. This is an ebook I created called Mastering the Game, 10 Essential GM Tips and How to Take Them to the Next Level. It's a relatively concise 7-page ebook that contains my top 10 best, most important tips for game masters who want to improve their game. If you want to level up the quality of your game overnight, then I would encourage you to download this for free and read it, apply it to your games, and boom, your games may improve by a drastic margin. Over my 20 plus years of gaming, these are the 10 tips that I have found to be most important. All you have to do to get this ebook is subscribe to my email list. When you get that first email, the download link will be in it. You can download it, read it, and boom, you'll be good to go. If you're a brand new GM, you may find these 10 tips indispensable for leveling up your games. And if you're a seasoned game master who already knows what's up, well, guess what? You can take a look at my ebook and hit that reply button on the email. Let me know if you think my tips are valid or if you would have used different tips. I would love to hear from you. With that being said, let's move on to this crucial topic of NPCs who do not speak Common. The first thing I'm going to say is that I really like the idea of NPCs that do not speak Common as a baseline language. There are a lot of cool storyline tactics you can use for these types of NPCs. In a lot of ways, you have to be more creative, and the players need to be more creative in how they correspond, how they talk to, how they carry on a conversation, how they interrogate, how they question, how they gather information from these NPCs. And to be really honest, this throws an interesting problem-solving wrench into the game that's actually fun and, in my experience, kind of invigorating for the player characters. I wouldn't want to always do this, make it the status quo all the time. Although I will say I have had settings in some of my campaigns where, for example, if the party is going through an Elvish village, everyone's going to be speaking Elvish, not Common. And if there's only one or two of the party who speaks Elvish, well, guess what? They're going to end up being the translators. And if they are not there, things are going to get very confusing unless someone has a comprehend languages spell or something like that. But as a general rule, I really love to throw this in there because it helps to make the world feel a bit more detailed, a bit more immersive, and if done right, it can actually lead to some interesting emotional connection. And I'm going to kind of talk about that here in a minute. But first, let's dive into how you make this type of NPC awesome. So here's the first thing. Communication is one of the things that strikes an emotional chord. One of the fastest ways to get your player characters more interested in an NPC is through communication. You can get players interested in NPCs in a number of ways. You might have them look interesting, or they're seen doing a certain kind of cool or interesting thing, or maybe the NPCs hear something interesting about them. Okay, these are all kind of first level initial overview type things. And yes, that's how you hook players generally to begin with in getting interested in an NPC. Or the player characters just may need the NPC for information. So you may already have a hook built in. For example, maybe they're supposed to go to the store and ask Lucian about where the Lycans are hiding their gold, right? So whether or not the hook is built in or you're going to create it from a first impression doesn't really matter. The idea is once you have the players hooked, then we come to this language barrier issue. And here's the way I like to run it. I love to have the character just try to talk to the player characters, like the NPC. And then if there is some kind of language barrier, it'll very quickly emerge. One thing I'll do is I'll quickly say to the players, it sounds to you like this character is not speaking Common. Now, if it's a common language that they're speaking that the player characters will probably recognize, I'll say something like, do any of you speak Dwarven? Let's say that maybe the NPC is speaking Dwarven. I'll literally say, do any of you speak Dwarven? And if one or more of them say yes, I'll say, well, you understand that this person is saying this. However, to the rest of you just sounds like foreign language. Now, if we're dealing with a less common language like Draconic or Abyssal, I actually won't label what it is. Instead, I will say, "Hey, everyone, let me know what languages you speak real quick. Just give me a quick overview. Like if I don't remember in the moment, I'll just ask them to tell me, and we'll go over the whole list, and I'll see if any of them speak Draconic or Abyssal. If they don't, then I'll say this character is speaking a language and you cannot pick up on it. It is definitely not a common tongue. There is a, and I'll maybe describe it. Like for Draconic, I might describe it as a guttural language of harsh consonants, and as they're speaking it, you sort of feel like a bit of power emanating from them. Maybe not necessarily magical power, but this language is certainly not a common tongue. There's something profound about this, and you feel like you've maybe heard this before, but you just can't put your finger on it. That's kind of what I'll say. Now, they could maybe roll an Arcana check, or they can roll a history check to try to identify the language, and that's fine. But that's how I'll run the very initial part of it. And this creates a little bit of a mystery, like a little problem solving puzzle right away, which is kind of fun. So now we move on to another interesting question, which is how do you make this type of NPC fun? Well, I think that the most important way to do this is to focus on that sort of problem solving part of the different languages and have the NPC try their best to communicate to the characters through things like maybe sign language. And I actually literally like to do that sort of thing like this. Like they may be talking and I'll say, they make a hand motion that looks like this. Right. And then you got to get the player characters have to try to figure out what in the heck they mean. And then the NPC may be doing a good job with the emotions, or they may be doing a bad job. Like you could also be like, they could say, so it's like very strange. Maybe they're good at trying to communicate what they're trying to communicate. Maybe they're not, right? It is so much fun to kind of go through this with players because a lot of times players will then try to do hand motions, gestures to the non-common speaking NPC. And I, a lot of times will have them roll performance checks for this to see how well it translates. And if they roll a good performance check, then maybe it looks like the NPC understands and tries to kind of respond. This to me is one of the funnest kind of things to do in this, but let's not forget that there's also great potential for emotional connection even without the language going on. Let me describe what I mean by that. Let's just say, for example, that one of the characters is trying to communicate with his NPC. No one can understand what they're saying. This NPC is sort of like looking at them longingly, kind of pleadingly, trying to be understood. Maybe they even make a more intimate gesture. Like maybe they come in and they take the player character by the hands and they look deeply in their eyes. Maybe you describe this character looks very distraught and actually kind of sad. There's this look on their face. Roll me an insight check. And if they roll anything even remotely good, I'll say something like, you sense a hint of desperation. They're desperately trying to communicate with you. And the fact that they can't get through to you or that they do not believe they're getting through to you seems to really be causing them distress. And you even see like a tear go down their face. And they're just like squeezing your hands, trying to figure out how to communicate with you what they're trying to say, right? Like you can really lean into the emotional part of this, and that can make the encounter really emotionally evocative and connecting. Now, one thing to kind of understand is that this NPC, if they are with the party for any significant length of time, the non-communication is probably not going to last. At some point, someone's going to get to comprehend languages. At some point, someone's going to get tongues. At some point, the languages are going to start to bleed over. And a lot of times, if they spend a lot of time together, I'll have them start to be able to share little bits of the language just that they're picking up naturally. And so one thing I like to do is I like to really have a firm idea about the identity of this NPC before we even do the non-common speaking arc of it, because it's important not to make the fact that they don't speak common their primary character like attribute. That shouldn't be the primary thing that drives their character. Their character should be whatever it is, like a shy girl who looks unsure of herself, or a confident guide who just doesn't happen to speak the language, or a savvy business person who is a little confused by this inability to communicate with you directly, right? So it's like we don't want their common identity to be that they can't speak common. That's just a feature. Their identity should be something else. And I always recommend nailing down that identity beforehand so that you're not tempted to make the fact that they don't speak common the identity. Because if you make the non-common speak or the non-language communication ability, if you make that their identity, then what happens is when someone casts comprehend languages, you're going to be stuck with a new problem, which is like, oh, I've been role playing this player character, and the whole point of it has been trying to get them to communicate. But now that I can communicate fully, I don't actually know what this character is about. I don't actually know who they are. I don't actually know what makes them interesting. I don't really know what their personality is like. And that can cause a strange kind of break in immersion as you try to sort that out on the fly. So I always like to try to think about those things in advance. And this leads back to like character backstory. This leads back to what kind of like culture, society they lived in where they never learned common. Because anyone who did a whole lot of like any kind of travel, any kind of commerce, in common cities, like a lot of people would have picked up common. It would be the common tongue. People would have had to have lived in sort of out of the way places or not been exposed very much to not pick up at least conversational common. And so it's like, what kind of person would this be? What led to them being this kind of person? But that's not even the most important question. The most important question is, who is this NPC? What is their backstory? What is their character? What is their value system? What are their motivations, right? Now, if you need to flesh out really good NPC backstory stuff, there's only one tool I trust for this. This is an ebook I wrote called The Ultimate Adventure Generator. It's a massive collection of 163 random roll tables on 310 print-friendly pages, and it's basically a random roll compendium of tables that you can use to help you shape nearly any part of your adventure. But if we go to chapter 5, Determine Key NPCs, page 99, and then we go ahead and scroll down to chapter 5, you're going to find all kinds of tables that'll help you roll on it. For example, what is their role? What's their personality? What's their backstory? What is their nature? Their relationship to the party? Their motivation? What are their quirks? What's their appearance look like? This is a D100 table, actually. It's like you can random roll it. If you don't know what your NPC looks like, you can very quickly roll on this, and it's actually really, really cool. Like clad entirely in black, missing several fingers or toes, edges of clothing singed or burnt. This can really lead to like really cool plot arc ideas. But anyway, then there are names. If you need to roll for names like on the spot, there's basically plug and play female names and then plug and play male names. And then I have like 100 plug and play NPCs in here, like Eravol Frostglin, a traveling bard with a gentle laugh, always seeking new ballads to share. Yana Mossvale, a humble herbalist who brews curious potions and loves gossiping with the passerby. So it's just like, like 100 different ones. So if you need an NPC resource, you could buy this at my personal bookstore. Links in the description. It sells for just $5.99 if you buy it that way. But if you join my Ko-Fi community membership, you get access to this and all kinds of other really cool resources without any additional cost, just for becoming a Ko-Fi member. And I release new resources every month, including new master classes and awesome things like that. Now, there's just one more thing I want to discuss. I want to give a huge shout out to our Ko-Fi community supporters. Thank you so much for supporting the Discord, the work we do here on the YouTube, and in our email list. If you have not joined our Discord yet, you should do that. Link is in the description. But I especially want to give a huge shout out to our most recent gold level supporter, Craig. Craig, thank you so much for choosing to support the channel and for the awesome work you do to help GM Philosophy realize its vision of empowering game masters to run better games. And with that being said, that is going to be a wrap for today. Thank you so much for coming back for another episode of GM Philosophy in the Morning. I'm here every single day talking about how game masters can improve their games and make them even better than ever. Roll some D100s for me at your next game, and I will see you awesome people on the next one.